Now, after things came to a head start with US and European Union diplomats pushing Kenya to deal with corruption, the Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta has roped in the private sector in a new strategy to find a formula for an effective war on graft. Well, Uhuru has formed a committee that will report to him within 1 week with solid strategies for regaining the country's reputation. KTN's Associate Editor Noah Otieno reports.
Even with the latest corruption scandals driving the Uhuru administration up the wall and triggering a multitude of investigations by parliamentary committees and the Anti-Corruption Commission, the loudest voice yet seems to have come from the US and the European Union envoys Thursday.
We are prepared to take further steps to support the Kenyan authorities, including, when permitted by law, the return of stolen assets to the Kenyan people, or to impose travel restrictions on those responsible for graft.
And within hours, the President sat down with representatives from the Kenya Private Sector Alliance to paint the real picture as he sees it.
On the area of corruption, after we heard the brief from the EACC, that 70% of all real and perceived corruption are in the area of procurement. And therefore, as we said, 70% of corruption is basically in this tent. That was basically it, because it's either the government or you who supply the government.
The result of the meeting was the formation of a multi-sectoral committee that has a mandate to draw up a war strategy to help the Jubilee administration fight graft in a manner that will finally convince the world something was being done.
And we agreed that together, therefore, we need to work and come up with a framework as to how we were going to deal both with real corruption as well as perceived corruption. And we agreed that in a week's time, the team that we put together, comprising both members of government as well as members of the private sector, would come up and give us a brief, a strategy, a plan of how we shall work together to see how we overcome that challenge.
The multi-sectoral team, to be led by the Treasury Cabinet Secretary, will also have Cabinet Secretaries from Industrialization Adan Mohamed, from Interior Joseph Nkaiseri, and from Information and Communication Technologies Dr. Fred Matiang'i. Others in the committee will be the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service Joseph Kinyua, the Anti-Corruption Commission CEO Halake Wako, nominees from Parliament, the media, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, Kenya Revenue Authority, and the Kenya Bureau of Standards.
Now we have a responsibility also as citizens of this country on how we project our own country. If we're going to stand and say so and so is guilty, or so and so is guilty of corruption, please let us give the necessary evidence. Don't just shout there and say, I heard it from so and so. I heard it from so. You must have some basis that can provide those charged with the responsibility for investigation and prosecution with the material in which to drive that particular case.
The committee has 1 week to report back to the President. Noah Otieno, KTN News.